What's up guys, it's DarkArmedDuelist and I'm going to be doing a Fluffal Frightfur deck profile. So I'm really excited to do this for you guys because this deck is an extremely fun deck to play that can fusion summon out some scary, powerful boss monsters. So without further ado, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell there so you can come part of the notification squad, and definitely check out the Patreon down in the description below for all those awesome rewards. Like getting your name description for a single video, getting assigned cards in the mail, and even getting to request a deck profile every single month to your Patreon. So without further ado, let's get straight on into this. So first off, we're going to be playing 3 copies of Fluffal Dog. This card is basically the Stratos of the deck. Then when this card is normal or special summoned from your hand, you can add an Edgem Saber or a Fluffal monster from your deck to your hand, which is a great ability to get the exact card that you need. We then play 3 copies of Fluffal Penguin. Fluffal Penguin is one of the best cards in the entire build because it has 2 absolutely insane abilities. That during your main phase, you can special summon 1 Fluffal monster from your hand, which is a great ability just to get an additional monster on the field, especially your copy of Dog, so you can get a search. It also has the ability, if this card is used and sent to the graveyard as a fusion material for a fusion summon of a Frightfur fusion monster, you can draw 2 cards and then discard a card. That is insane that this card gives you a draw 2 and a discard to help you dig into the deck for more combo pieces. This card is hands down one of the best cards in the build. We then play 2 copies of Fluffal Bear. Fluffal Bear is really good because this card instantly gets you to your copy of Toy Vendor by just sending this card from your hand to the graveyard, making this card a very awesome card in this build. We then play a single copy of Fluffal Wings. Fluffal Wings is a good one-of in the deck, but you only need a single copy of this card because it's so easy to get in the graveyard. But it's an extremely powerful card because it basically gets you a draw 2 and a search, which is insane. Because if this card's in the graveyard and you control Toy Vendor, you can banish this card from your graveyard and then target a Fluffal monster in your graveyard and banish it. And if you do, draw a card. Then you can send a Toy Vendor you control to the graveyard, and if you do, draw another card, which then your copy of Toy Vendor will go off and let you search a copy of a Fluffal card, which is amazing. This card is definitely a one-of in the build. We then play a single copy of Fluffal Dolphin. Dolphin is a great one-of in the build, and I almost played 2 copies in this deck because it is a level 4 water monster, helping you go in for cards like Bahamut Shark with your copy of Penguin, but I feel like 1 is totally fine in this deck. It has the ability to let you target a Toy Vendor in your graveyard and set it, and if you do, send a Fluffal monster or an Edgem Saber from your deck to the graveyard, which is a really good effect, which is just absolutely amazing. I love that about this card, and it's just such a powerful one-of in this build. We then play a single copy of Fluffal Sheep. Fluffal Sheep helps you out a lot in this build because if you control a Fluffal monster, you can special summon this card from your hand. Then return one other Fluffal monster that you control back to your hand, which is a great effect to be able to bounce cards back to your hand like Fluffal Dog, so you can normal summon them out to your side of the field again later to get you additional searches. It also has a crazy powerful effect to then special summon an Edgem monster from your hand or grave, getting you an additional monster on your side of the field, which is amazing. We then play a single copy of Octopus. Octopus is great because it helps you recycle your cards, which is why I play this card as a one-of in the build. I only feel like you need a single copy of this card, but it's an amazing one-of overall. We then play 3 copies of Edgem Chain. Edgem Chain is crazy powerful in the deck because this card helps you get to your copy of Patchwork extremely quickly. Because if this card is sent from your hand or field to the graveyard, you can add a Frightfur card from your deck to your hand, which can be your copies of Frightfur Fusion or Patchwork that you can search off this card. This card is a definite 3-of in the build. We then play 2 copies of Edgem Scythe. Edgem Scythe is basically like a hand trap fusion spell, which is insane because during your opponent's main phase, quick effect, you can reveal this card in your hand to fusion summon a Frightfur fusion monster from your extra deck using monsters from your hand or field as fusion material, including this card in your hand, which is a great ability to just basically hand trap your opponent if you're going second with this build to go in for a fusion play during your opponent's turn. It also has the ability to if a Frightfur fusion monster you control would be destroyed battle by card effect, you manage to discard from the grave instead, giving you some protection for your cards. We then play a single copy of Edgem Saber. Edgem Sabers is just a good one-of in the deck that's a great combo piece, but this card is so searchable that you just want to play a single copy. It's an amazing card to help you step into a lot of different fusion plays, but it brings itself back from the graveyard, which is why we just play a single copy. We then play 3 copies of Herald of Orange Light. Herald of Orange Light is insane that this card is finally back at 3, but it's amazing in the deck because we play so many different fairies. Like the entire top row is nothing but fairies. copies. So we can use this card in the build to just stop our opponent from hand trapping us, because when your opponent activates a monster effect, quick effect, you can send this card and another fairy monster from your hand to the grave to negate the activation if you destroy it, which is great in this deck to be able to stop your opponent's monster effects. Usually, you can use this card to stop hand traps. We then play 2 copies of Elliott the Golden Lord. This card is amazing, and who knew that Elliott loved stuffed animals, but this card is just amazing in the deck because it has a great ability that you can send this card and a spell or trap card from your hand to the grave, and then target a card on the field and send it to the grave, which is great for spot removing cards, but it also helps out to be able to use with your copy of Toy Vendor, which is amazing because this card also has the ability if it's in the graveyard, you can send a spell or trap card you control to the grave, add this card back to your hand, and then special summon it as a 3,500 attack point monster, which is insane. This card is a definite 2-0 in the build because it works so well with your copy of Toy Vendor and also is an insanely powerful boss monster. We then finally play for the monsters a single copy of Meli. Meli's a good one of the deck because it works with your copy of Spren that we're playing in the extra deck to be able to use with your copy of Fluffal Sheep. I love this card in the deck because basically what you do is you summon out your copy of Sheep while you have a copy of, say, Cruel Whale on your side of the field, link them both away, summon out a copy of Spren, and use Spren to be able to send your copy of Meli to the grave, then use Meli's ability with your copy of Cruel Whale to be able to make a copy of Dracos Tapalia, which is amazing. But this card is insane because it does work with Spren because it's a level 2, making this card a really good one of in the build. So that's it for the monsters, guys. Let's get in to the spells. So for the spells, guys, we're going to start off with a single copy of Foolish Burial. Foolish Burial is an amazing one of in the deck just to get the exact card you need in the graveyard, especially cards like Elliott the Golden Lord or your copy of your Fluffal Wing, which is also a really good card to be able to send to the graveyard off Foolish Burial. We then play a single copy of Called by the Grave. This card is great just to stop your opponent from hand trapping you while you're going in for all of your plays. We then play a single copy of Frightfur Repair. Repair is a great card to be able to send to the graveyard off your copy of Cruel Whale, because this card has a great effect that you can banish this card from your graveyard to special summon a Fluffal or Edgent monster from your hand, which is a great effect. It also has a pretty good effect if you draw it that you can target a Frightfur fusion monster in your graveyard and return it back to the extract, then special summon a Fluffal or an Edgent monster from your grave, which is a great effect. Overall, this card is an amazing one of. We then play a single copy of Frightfur Fusion. Frightfur Fusion is basically Miracle Fusion for the deck, which is why we're playing this card as a one-of in the build. Plus it's searchable, which is why we just play a single copy. We then play 2 copies of Royal Penguin's Garden. This card searches our copy of Fluffal Penguin, which is why we play this card as a 2-of in the build. It's an amazing card overall in the deck, but you only really need 2 copies of the card in the build. It's basically like a Tinky for your copy of Penguin. We then play 3 copies of Foolish Burial Goods. Foolish Burial Goods is good. This card helps you send your copy of Toy Vendor from your deck to the graveyard so you can get searches, essentially being like a copy of Rhoda for the deck. We then play 3 copies of Polymerization. It is a fusion deck, so you need Polymerization in this build, and it's just an amazing card overall to help you fusion summon into all of your boss monsters. We then play 3 copies of Frightfur Patchwork. Frightfur Patchwork is an insane 3-of in the deck, so it lets you add an Edgent monster and a Polymerization from your deck to your hand, essentially being a +1 for the build, but it's insane that it can both search out a copy of, say, Edgent Chain and a copy of Polymerization, and then use your copy of Edgent Chain for a Polymerization fusion, or a fusion play, and then you get to use Edgent Chain to search another copy of Patchwork for the follow-up the next turn. We then play 3 copies of Toy Vendor, saving the best for last. This card is insane. I absolutely love Toy Vendor. It has a really cool ability that once returned, you discard a card, then draw a card and show it. And if it's a Fluffal monster, you can special summon 1 monster from your hand. Doesn't matter what monster, just a monster from your hand. Otherwise, discard the card you drew. And if this card is sent to the graveyard, you add a copy of Edgem Saber or a Fluffal monster from your deck to your hand, which is a crazy powerful effect. I love that if it just touches the graveyard, it gives you a search, which is amazing to be able to use with cards like Foolish Burial Goods or your copy of Elliott the Golden Lord. This card is an amazing 3-of in the build. It's just such a powerful card overall in the deck. So that's it for the main deck, guys. Let's get into the extra deck. So for the extra deck, guys, we're going to start off with 2 copies of Cruel Whale. Cruel Whale is an amazing card in the extra deck, and it has a really cool ability that if this card is fusion summoned, you can destroy 1 card on both players' fields, which is a great ability just to be able to pop cards on the field. And it also has the ability once per turn, a quick effect, you can target a fusion monster that you control and send a Frightfur card from your deck to the graveyard or extra deck to the graveyard. And then if you do, the targeted monster gains attack equal to half the original attack of it until the end of the turn, which is a great effect to be able to use, but it just says a Frightfur card. So you can send cards like Frightfur Repair from your deck to the graveyard, which is a crazy thing about this card. We then play a single copy of Frightfur Tiger. This card can pop multiple cards on the field, which is absolutely insane, because when this card is fusion summoned, you can target cards on the field up to the number of fusion materials used for this card's fusion summon and destroy them, which helps you pop cards on the field to go in for an OTK. And all Frightfur monsters that you control gain 300 attack for each Fluffal monster and Frightfur monster that you control, which is a great ability for this card to have, but you can only control one of it, which is why we only play a single copy in the deck. We then play a single copy of Frightfur Wolf. I love this card because depending on how many fusion materials you use to make this card, depends on the amount of attacks that it can go into, helping you just OTK your opponent. This is basically your OTK piece that if you see the opening, you use your copy of Frightfur Fusion to go into this card, banishing a bunch of cards from the graveyard just to help you go in for the OTK. The only downside is it does require Edgem Sabers to go into this card and your copy of Tiger. We then play a single copy of Sabretooth. Sabretooth is a great one-of in this build that when this card is fusion summoned, you can target a Frightfur monster in your graveyard and special summon it, which you will have in the grave because this card does require a Frightfur fusion monster to make this card. It also has the ability all Frightfur monsters you control gain 400 attack. And if this card was fusion summoned using 3 or more fusion materials, it cannot be destroyed by battle or by card effects, making it really hard for your opponent to deal with. We then play a single copy of Dracostapelia. Dracostapelia is a walking negate, which is absolutely amazing for this deck, and you're usually making this card with a copy of Cruel Whale and Meli. We then play a single copy of Guardian Chimera. This card is insane, helping you draw cards and pop cards on the field, and it's overall just a fantastic fusion monster to be able to make in the deck, especially since we play Polymerization. We then play a single copy of Abyss Dweller. Abyss Dweller is amazing just to shut down the graveyard, and it also has a really cool ability that has a water monster as a material, then all water monsters that you control gain 500 attack points, which actually does come up in this deck. We then play a single copy of Bahamut Shark so we can make Toad. Toad is really good because basically with this card, it's a walking negate, which is amazing, but you use your copy of Bahamut Shark's ability to summon out Toad from the extract, which is absolutely amazing. We then play a single copy of Underworld Goddess. Underworld Goddess is great in this build just to help you deal with cards that are unaffected by everything or something that you need to out on your opponent's side of the field because it's essentially like an extra deck kaiju, which is just really good. We play a single copy of Nightmare Unicorn to spin stuff, 1 copy of Sprin to be able to use with your copy of Meli. This card is really good in the deck overall because it takes 2 monsters including a level, rank, or link 2, which is why you use your copy of Sheep that is a level 2 to be able to go into this card. And this card is really good in this build overall because if this card is link summoned, you can send a level 2 monster from your deck to the grave, which is always going to be your copy of Meli to be able to use in the graveyard with your copy of Cruel Whale that you use to make this card to be able to go in for a fusion play of your copy of Dracostapelia, essentially turning your copy of Sheep and your copy of Cruel Whale into this and a copy of Dracostapelia, which is amazing. We then play a single copy of IP Masquerena. IP is great in this build so you can go in for your copy of Unicorn or Underworld Goddess during the opponent's turn. We then play finally a single copy of Cross Sheep. This card was pretty much made for this deck, which is amazing because if you fusion summon into a zone this card points to, then you can special summon a level 4 or lower monster from your graveyard, just extending your plays. This card is amazing in the deck as a one-of. So that's it for the deck, guys. I hope you enjoyed. This deck is super fun to be able to play. If you guys have never played Fluffal Frightfur before, you should definitely give this deck a try because it's super fun to be able to play, and it's absolutely insane the power that this deck has. It's really amazing. So that's going to do it for this one, guys. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell notification so you can become part of the notification squad, and we'll see you guys in the next video. See you later, guys.